Good morning, everybody. I'm Zach. I'm here with my co-host Sully. This is the
Yo.
Pigskin Prognosis. Sorry, I just totally walked right over your intro there, Sully. I'm sorry. Say hello again for everybody.
No, it's fine. It's fine. No, hey everybody, how you doing?
This is the Pigskin Prognosis episode for Week 18 of the 2024 season, or the final regular season games of the 2024 season. It is also New Year's Eve. Happy New Year's Eve. Be smart, be safe tonight when you're out and about celebrating. But we have a good show for you. We got a lot of high scores, low scores, and some bets coming up, along with some game recaps. And then talking about some draft implications, potential postseason games that are going to make some plays and that are some must watches this upcoming week. Every game, by the way, this week will be at 1 o'clock Eastern on Sunday. There will be no Thursday night, Monday night games, Sunday night games, nothing. It's all 1 o'clock Eastern on Sunday. So, what?
There's two games on Saturday, and there's the Detroit Lions playing the Vikings on Sunday night.
You're lying to me.
I swear to God, act like you watch football. Your Bills are playing on Saturday at 4.
No, you're lying.
I swear to God.
All right, well, disregard everything that I just said. Okay, yeah, there is. Okay.
I swear to God, every week he seems to regress. Everybody, I am fucking sorry for his inability to read and do a little bit of research before you open his mouth.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I don't know where I got that information from. Then
Like,
I was way off.
Jesus, I will say there is no Thursday and there is no Monday, so
I was half right.
I guess a fifth of the way right. But everything else came out of your mouth was fucking wrong.
Oh my God. All right. Well, that's a great start to the episode. So stick around. We got a show for you. So
Jesus.
Don't go anywhere. It's going to be good this week.
Or do at this point.
Oh God, I'm such an idiot, dude. Okay. Well,
right,
what a way to roll right into that episode. Okay. Yeah, so let's go over the schedule because if there's anybody out there who thinks that all the games are just going to play at 1 o'clock on Sunday, you're an idiot. Oh, my head hurts from being so stupid so much.
Dude, it hurts mine from you being that dumb too. So
Okay, you said so. There's Sunday game or Saturday games.
yes, so the Browns play the Ravens at 1:30. This is Pacific time. Which, being a Browns fan, I feel like you should know when your team.
I gave
plays,
up on
but
them after
apparently
like
not.
week 6. Okay.
Fuck, you might have given up before that. And then the Bengals play the Steelers.
Literally all 4 teams that play in the division. Okay.
Yeah, and then there's a bunch of Sunday, 1 o'clock games for East Coast, and then there's one Sunday night game, which is for the division, Vikings and the Lions, which actually has playoff implications and number 1 seed stuff and all that kind of shit. But we can talk about that toward the end.
Wow. Yeah.
Since I'm sorry, everybody, but my co-host, this is his first time. I don't.
What is football? I thought we were kicking that little white ball around.
Yeah, I mean,
Damn.
yeah, and it's round, yeah. Or is it the smaller one that you hit with a stick?
God, okay. All right. Well, less of me being an idiot and more to me telling you about fantasy if you even want to listen to me at this point.
Well, less of him being an idiot and more of him being an idiot about other shit. So
Yeah. Okay, so it is week 18 of the 2024 regular season. The last week for fantasy football is probably already passed in most cases. Usually week 17, week 16 time frame is when most of your fantasy football games will wrap up, your championship games and such like that. So if you're still playing, I don't know why. A lot of the starters are going to be sitting this week. So doubtful that that there's anybody. If there's anybody out there that's in a league right now, comment down below and let us know why. And
then tag your commissioner, and then we'll make fun of him for you.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck?
So yeah. Okay. So with the games going off this week, we like to go into our highest scorers the first thing of the week. Every episode we talk about highest scorers of the fantasy league. This is again based off of ESPN leagues. We also go into the lowest scorers, or surprisingly lower scorers that we think should not have done as bad as they actually did. And then we also talk about some bets. So with getting it started, Sully, why don't you go ahead and kick us off on the highest scorers?
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and kick this off. This is one of the more entertaining games of the whole weekend, in my opinion. You all could have other opinions, but it was a game from Saturday. It was the one of the Bengals players, and it wasn't the main receiver you were probably thinking it was going to be, but it was a receiver from the Bengals, and that would be T. Higgins with 40.1 points, 11 receptions, 131 yards, 3 touchdowns. If you had him, especially going into your fucking fantasy championship week, which we established that most people, just wrapped up, that was a good 40 points to start off before you started off, your real Sunday game slate. But hell of a fucking way to start off fantasy season. There was a good amount of like high scores, and hell, even one on this list too that we're about to mention here in a little bit. Honestly, took me by surprise too.
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. We'll get to him in a second.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the dude in our league actually has T. Higgins actually, and I think he'll be locking up the championship win for his back-to-back win this week. So
nice. Well, it wasn't against you, was it?
No, I beat you because you didn't set a lineup.
Oh, sorry. Well, I have a slight 6-point advantage over the guy that I'm playing for a few $100s, and he's got 3 players in the game right now, San Francisco against Detroit, and I don't have anybody left to play. So we'll see how that goes, and that's for the championship. But yeah, T. Higgins. Didn't Jamar Chase get hurt too? I think Jamar Chase got hurt.
He did for a little bit, but for probably a series or two, and then he came back because he was playing toward the end.
Okay, I didn't know if he sat out. I just remember hearing that it was like his ankle or something that got hurt.
Yeah, but he came back in because he didn't really touch much in the beginning, and then toward the end of the game because even the announcers were like, "This is usually Jamar Chase territory," and then he gets just like a sideline conversion to like convert on a convert with like a 3rd or 4th down or something.
Okay. Yeah, that was an exciting game for sure.
Yep.
But speaking of the same team, the guy who was slinging the ball was Joe Burrow. He's our number 2 highest scorer of the week with 36.98 fantasy points, 39 completions on 49 attempts for 412 yards, 3 touchdowns, 4 carries for 25 yards, and a rushing touchdown. So he had a phenomenal game. That's the Joe Burrow that we expected to see in his rookie season before he got hurt. That he carried that momentum in through college, that you were expecting to see that growth after he recovered from his injury. But I think it's just starting to tick for him, and I'd like to see how he does in the future in other leagues.
Did you just say Joe Burrow was a rookie?
No, in his rookie season.
Oh, I was like,
no. Remember, he got hurt. No, he got hurt in his rookie season. But what I was saying was that the rushing and the throwing, rushing touchdowns and such, kind of like that Josh Allen. I mean, not to compare them at all, but that he had a little bit of a more of a ground game effect to bring in scores like this, in the red zone like he did in this game.
Mm.
So. And I think that was the mentality that everyone wanted to see in him in his rookie year before he got hurt, and he was on track for that, but the injury sidelined him for the rest of the year, and that development was kind of halted at the professional level, and it took a little while longer. So now we're starting to see what we were expecting a long time ago.
Well, at this point, I just have to actually make sure I pay attention to what you're saying, so that you're not feeding wrong information.
Yeah, you're my fact checker.
Good God. Jesus Christ! All right, next person up, Giants wide receiver, rookie wide receiver, an actual rookie, not Joe Burrow rookie, apparently according to Zach. His Malik Neighbors, 36.1 points, 7 receptions, 171 yards, 2 TDs. I mean, it's about time. I feel like this dude's finally starting to show up. I know we had a couple good games in the beginning of the year too. But the Giants honestly just look like a lifeless offense, so it's good to see them doing something with fucking, really nothing on the line.
Yeah, well, I think it's beneficial for me as a Cleveland Browns fan.
Why? Because it moves you guys up in the draft.
Well, I think yeah, yeah. I don't know if they go off of strength of schedule
They
for
will
the
if there's a
draft.
tie.
There's like three teams right now in
Or
that are tied for that draft.
oh,
draft.
We got to get to the draft implication at the end. You're
I
jumping
know.
ahead.
I know. I know. And where did the Giants go? Oh, they're still at the bottom. Okay. All right. Well. Yeah. Anyways, all right. Next up, I don't know how it worked out like this, but it did. My boy, where did he go? Baker Mayfield, 34.56. That's actually pretty cool. 3456.
When I was typing the script up, I was like, "That's pretty fucking cool." I got to mention this on the podcast. So.
34.56 points. That's insane. 27 completions, 32 attempts, 359 yards, 5 touchdowns, with 1 rush of a whopping 2 yards. He was destroying this game. 5 touchdowns.
Who are they playing?
I don't want to hurt your feelings.
Yeah, well, they've already hurt, so we're just gonna go ahead. It took you 15 minutes to put me off this episode, so here we are.
Rip off the Band-Aid. Yeah. Well, yeah. No, I mean, that's what you get that with that division rivalry.
Yeah, and Baker went out and was just slinging the fucking rock. I feel like, especially after they lost to Dallas last week, Tampa had a point to come out and prove of like, okay, that's not who we are.
Yeah, they needed that. They needed that last week. But yeah, you're right.
But they're currently sitting in the division lead at the moment with Atlanta losing last night. So
I will say last week's game against Dallas, Tampa Bay did have a chance, and it wasn't Baker's fault that they lost. I mean, you could throw a bunch of things at him, like, okay, it was his fault. But the game-ending play was a fumble after he made a completion. Like that's out of his hands. Yeah. And he was in that point of the game where he could have been making those plays that he does. He does that. He has that dog in him, if you will. He's got that end game mentality. He knows how to go out there, make smart throws, pick apart defenses, and he does it with tempo, and it's good. And I think that's why Tampa Bay is so successful in a lot of these scenarios now, because they have somebody who can do it like Tom Brady did. They didn't really have to worry too much about that transfer between Tom Brady and the next quote-unquote franchise quarterback. And Baker Mayfield was the guy to kind of pick up the slack there. Now, granted, he's a long way off from Tom Brady.
Okay, I was like, am I about to start poking holes in the fact that you just compared Brady and Mayfield in the same fucking sentence?
No. I'm not. That's not at all what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to, like, it's easy to say that he bridged that gap well.
People want to hear us argue, Zach, is what they want. Okay, they want you to say, "Yeah, I'm comparing the two."
Yeah, you know what? Baker Mayfield's better than Tom Brady. There, I said it.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, no, that's
all right.
I don't even think lying. I can say that and have to say it with straight face.
Yeah, you're right. I like Tom Brady because he went to Michigan. That's all I gotta say.
Dude, speaking of Michigan, it's funny that you say that because of the fact that that VetTix link, they put out more tickets to the Rose Bowl, and your favorite team, Ohio State's playing in the Rose Bowl. Yeah, and I was looking to get the tickets. I tied it in with the whole Michigan-Ohio State rivalry. If you couldn't figure that out, I know you've kind of, said some fucking stupid shit today already. So I gotta make sure that you're fucking tracking with what the hell I'm saying.
Yeah. I'm glad you're keeping me in check.
That's what I'm fucking here for. All right, moving on to the next one. Drew Lock, which is the fucking surprising one, being as we kind of talked earlier with Malik Neighbors, the Giants suck.
Not this week, they didn't.
Dude.
They put up like 45 points.
Yeah, 34.36 points for old Drew Lock, the former Denver Bronco. 17 for 23, 309 yards, 4 touchdowns, which is fucking impressive. That might be probably about what he had in Denver, and he was there for a couple seasons. 5 carries, 0 yards, but a touchdown. So it's probably like a tush push or some shit.
Yeah.
But not a bad shot for Drew Lock.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, he looked comfortable behind the Giants' offensive line there. It looked good.
Or the lack of offensive line there.
Well, it's a figure of speech.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
Yeah, but yeah, he looked decent. I mean, I would have liked. 309 yards, but that's because Malik Neighbors really carried him a lot.
Yeah, had 171 of those fucking yards. So
yeah. But yeah, Malik Neighbors went off, which we already talked about. But still, a decent game for Drew. If you take out a couple of those big runs for Malik, let's say Malik Neighbors gets 110 yards instead. That's only 60 less yards. That's still a 250 yard game. That's not bad by any means, especially when you're throwing 4 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, good game for him. Glad to see the Giants win because now I think they're still going to be the lowest in the draft order, which we'll talk about again in a couple of minutes here. But yeah, I think that's
feeding everybody wrong info.
Yeah, my bad.
All right, lowest scores. We'll let you start off.
Yeah, lowest scores is somebody that I draft every year in the fantasy league, so I hate to see his name on this list, but as of late, he's kind of getting replaced. But it's Josh Jacobs. He scored 10.9 points, which not a terrible point total in a fantasy week, but it brings down his point average, throughout the season and throughout his career. It's just not him. He usually is up in the anywhere between like 14 to 18 point range is what I give him. And that is
so. I mean, since this, so last week, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He had 6 weeks since they came back from the bye week. In week 10, he's had nothing lower than a 20-point game.
Okay, yeah. So
Jesus.
Yeah. And that's with a touchdown. You take that one touchdown away, which is huge in a low scoring fantasy points. You're looking at 4.9 points, 5 points for him. 4.9 points. That's not good. That touchdown is a big saving grace for some people who played him. But his counterpart also did, decent. I think he scored more than him, but yeah, 17 carries, and 69 yards and a touchdown. He had no receptions, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think he caught the ball at all.
No.
And a touchdown. I already said that multiple times.
You did.
Good.
You did.
Good. Yeah, just that. Just that one touchdown. Yeah, he just had the one.
Yeah, that's fucking insane. But moving on to the next one, I feel like everyone was expecting a lot from this player getting traded over to the Jets with his best friend Aaron Rodgers. Davante Adams. He did get hurt toward the end of that game. Rodgers at that point was already out. And from what I'm hearing, Rodgers kind of took himself out of that game anyway. It was like, hey, we're down 33-0. Like, let's put Tyrod Taylor in there and let him play. But Davante Adams had 9.7 points, 5 receptions, 47 yards, no touchdowns, and he was targeted 8 times. I mean, at this point, I kind of feel bad for the dude. I feel like, you get traded going from the Raiders, who obviously they are how they are at the moment. Trash. And Davante Adams expected to go out there with his buddy Rodgers and on a team that, we've talked about this multiple times about how the Jets are, were supposed to be good on paper. This was supposed to be their year, all that bullshit. And, the last couple of weeks, Davante looked like him and Rodgers were getting that connection back, that mojo back. And then they just go out. Granted, they were playing Buffalo, who's the number 2 seed now, but it's still rough to go out. And, he's aiming for 1,000-yard receiving season, and I think he's like 70-something yards short, I think, right now. But it's sad to see for Devontae, you know, especially fantasy managers, all these 4 guys going through in championship week, shit in the bed is heartbreaking and painful to see.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with everything you just said, and it's like you said, for fantasy owners, they're the biggest impact on all of this, and I'm curious to see, what do you think the future looks like for that on a fantasy standpoint?
For Devontae Adams or for the
Yeah,
Jets as a
yeah.
whole in
So, well,
general?
I mean, so I guess I'm trying to like incorporate in a little bit of the Aaron Rodgers situation, but yeah, with Devontae Adams now that, because he's going to be in the league for, you know, a handful more years, but with his quarterback teetering on the edge of potentially getting out, how does that look for fantasy owners in the future? Because we don't have a solid line on a replacement yet. I haven't even heard of a sniff of who could be replacing Rodgers if he gets out.
No, neither have I. I'm hearing things that, you know, with Rodgers, that he's obviously, this is all unconfirmed, obviously, but there's rumors that, you know, Rodgers is trying to tank so that he gets released and gets fired so he can go, you know, wherever the hell he wants afterward. And again, those are all rumors, so they're more than likely not true. Obviously, I think Rodgers is a professional as much as I think the dude's kind of out there sometimes with some of the shit that he says, but that's neither here nor there. But as far as the whole Devontae Adams things goes, if I feel like with Rodgers not there, I feel like that hurts his stock, just because I feel like more like a younger quarterback is gonna want to hit Garrett Wilson a lot more, because I feel like Devontae Adams is gonna be either double or triple covered or in a zone coverage, and the younger, less experienced QB is not going to be willing to sit there and try to like thread the needle and make those dangerous plays that, you know, Rodgers is used to throwing and making to Devontae, knowing how good he is. So it's from a fantasy standpoint. I mean, I'm not. Maybe, you know, next season, and you know, and hopefully you'll rejoin with us next season, since I'm trying to run that league for a long ass time. But anyway, if you get Devontae Adams toward, you know, round 4 or 5, I would say that's a steal, just because you're taking a massive risk on him. I know a lot of people drafted him in the sometimes some in the first, some in the big early second round, and hoped to get a lot of, you know, output. I know he was with the Raiders at the beginning of the season, and then everybody thought him going back, you know, like we said, to the Jets would increase and boast his fantasy value, but it only really seemed to have once. But the way it looks, the way we sit right now, Rodgers or not, I'm not touching Devontae Adams next season. There's no fucking way.
What if the Jets draft some rookie quarterback and look at playing him? What if they, you know, depending on how this week plays out, you know, pick somebody like Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders? Again, not to get too much into the draft implications, but
no, this ties in pretty well.
Yeah,
I
just
like
trying to tie it into the Devontae Adams future of fantasy.
I like the way that you know that tied into it. And this will probably be honestly how like next week's episode looks, since we won't be talking about fantasy, since there's no, you know, leagues going on. There's really no point in talking about it unless you want to talk about all the backups next week. But I feel like Sanders going there would I feel like he'd be a little bit more willing to throw into that double coverage, just because of the fact that he had Travis Hunter, and Travis Hunter was usually the one double covered a lot in Colorado.
Yeah.
So he's not afraid to sit there and be like, okay, cool, I'm going to make this so that he's got a high point the ball. Because again, Travis Hunter did it all the time, you know, and Devontae Adams, why the hell can't he do it? So I feel like that would help out a little bit, but I still wouldn't touch him, even if a Cam Ward or a Sanders ended up going there, just because of the fact that, like I said, I still feel like the tight, or not the tight end, but Garrett Wilson's going to be the main guy, especially for those two rookie QBs, if, you know, pending if they went to the Jets or not, to check down to them. And hell, they even got Breece Hall as a receiving, you know, running back in the backfield to help out too. So just throw a bunch of check downs, let Breece Hall do it. I feel like if they do get drafted, I feel like Breece Hall's stock will go up. I know a lot of people were expecting that same output from him that he had last year to this year, and it just didn't correlate. So that would be my thought process on it. And
yeah, I think we are due
Garrett
for.
once he gets traded, I'm not touching him.
Interesting. Okay.
Zach's like taking notes for next season's draft. He's like, okay.
Yeah. Now I know what your plans are. Now that I'm playing against you, draft Devonte Adams. Check.
Noted.
I do like Devonte Adams. Even I mean he showed his worth not playing with Aaron Rodgers when he was out in Las Vegas. But I mean you're looking at an aging quarterback and a wide receiver who isn't on the same level as he was when they both worked back together in Green Bay. So I think there's something to be taken from it. Maybe that's a wide receiver that if it's on the market is a good wide receiver 3 or a flex position or something, depending on the league that you're in. But when you look at something like the implication having a severe degradation based off of the quarterback, if the quarterback leaves, I agree with you. I think that's something where you really need to take a look at the entire aspect of the team and not just draft him because of the name and the average points that he gets you in a season. You know?
Yeah, and it's funny too that you say that too, because I feel like with him right now, it's more of those like kind of like how a Jameis Winston is in Cleveland right now. Of like, it's gonna be all or nothing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's kind of how I feel how it's been with him too this season.
That's a valid point. And I will say too, kind of to Devonte Adams maybe discredit is that you've seen these guys work so well in the past. So if you're a relatively inexperienced fantasy league owner, or team owner, I should say, you are looking at the name and you're expecting him to put up the same results, and that's not a good mentality to have, because it's just not the same duo anymore. It's an age duo, it's a different team. There's a different mentality behind the team. They've gone through some changes this year as the Jets, fired Robert Saleh. There's just a lot to it that it's more so to look beyond than just, oh, I've had Devonte Adams before. He's a great wide receiver. He'll get me the same amount of points. He is still a good wide receiver. He's just not a top 3 or a top 4 rounder, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd say fuck, dude. I don't even think I put him. Let's see where he's at fantasy wise, as far as like
draft
top. Yeah. As far as like, so he's position rank 14. So he's the 14th best wide receiver in ESPN leagues as of this season.
And that honestly surprises me. But you have to look at. I wonder if what the projections would look like had he not left Vegas.
Yeah, that's a
because you got to point. Yeah, because you got to pay attention to the fact that he played most of the season in Vegas. So he came to when did he go to Jets? Week 11 or 12 or 10 or something like that?
Not even that close. It was week 7. He got traded after week 10.
Okay.
He didn't play week 4, 5, or 6.
Okay. All right.
The Raiders.
So I guess that kind of takes away my point. He didn't play most of the season with the Raiders. He played most of the season with the Jets, but
I mean, it's since he got with the Jets, 6, 9, 22, 9, 13, their bye week, 17, 25, 42, 19, and 9. So like looking at it there is like not bad, but I just feel like that overall production and dip, I feel like now, granted, they're going against Buffalo this week, which is a tough defense to play against, but you go through and yeah, like if you just looked at it, on that, obviously just that stat line of just since he joined the Jets, like, you're like, oh shit, that's not bad fantasy wise. That's, he put up 220.5 fantasy points so far this season. There's one game left. Who knows whether he plays or not? I would lean probably toward him sitting, but crazier shit's happened. And you sit there and look at it and go, oh damn, that's, like we said earlier, he's, I think, like I said, 70 something yards, I think, away from 1,000-yard season again, which is, fantastic. I feel like every receiver, wants 1,000 yards, every running back wants at least 1,000 yards, shit like that. So like statistically, that doesn't look bad, but I just feel like kind of what we've been saying is just like that downhill trend of like, is he gonna do well? Is he gonna do shitty? Is he gonna do well? Like when he goes off, but when he sucks, it's fucking miserable.
Yeah. Yeah, and that mentality of expecting that same thing, which is kind of why we have Josh Jacobs on the list. He put up 10 points and got a touchdown, but his overall production you were expecting to be higher. I mean, Devontae Adams was not far off. He had 9.7 points, but he didn't score a touchdown. You know, and if you're in a non PPR league, he has 4.7 points with no touchdown. That's 47 yards is 4.7 points, and that not having that touchdown is a big deal if you're looking for that production.
Yeah. 100% agree. And I know, like you brought up a good, sitting there thinking point. I know there's a long off season, especially between now and when most people do their fantasy drafts, and August, super early September, that week before the season actually starts. But a lot of shit could happen. Who knows if Devontae even stays in New York? Who knows if what the hell Rodgers is doing? There's just a ton of what ifs for that team, and it's some things to sit there and think about. And when we bring up either the Instagram or the Twitter or X or whatever the hell everybody wants to call it now, we'll make sure that it gets posted with people getting traded and people moving, and if any news with Devontae or Aaron Rodgers comes out, we'll make sure to bring that to everybody, as if people aren't going to be getting it notified on their phone. But just an extra thing of seeing and being like, oh shit, people traded, people moved, especially when draft time rolls through for fantasy leagues. People seem to, I mean, hell, I know I do. Like, hey, shit, where did so and so go? And you're like, oh, he went to the fucking Raiders, and you're like, when the fuck did that happen?
Yeah.
Like, oh, it happened back in fucking March when the season opened back up. So
yeah,
and I feel like that might be one of those things that end up happening, whether it's a retirement from Rodgers or Devontae getting traded because of cap space or whatever the hell it end up may being, or
I feel like
even
instead
Garrett
of
Wilson being going.
Yeah, I feel like with Devontae Adams, I feel like instead of a trade for cap space, they'll just restructure his contract, which is what happened to Deshaun Watson again this year, which indicates that the Browns want to keep him.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Ranting on and on and on about fantasy stuff. We still have two more lower scores to get into, so let's get into those two real quick, and then we'll pick up the
my favorite segment.
Yeah, and then we'll get into the draft implications and trades and postseason look forward and things like that for next year's fantasy league.
Nico Collins was the next lowest scorer, 8.9 points. I feel like everyone was expecting more. I mean, the Texans didn't fucking score on Saturday at all. They had 2 points as a fucking safety. Again, I know they were going against the Ravens. Everyone thought this game was just going to be like a fucking shootout, 70 to fucking 68, and it turned into just a fucking ass kicking by the Ravens. So he ended up with 8.9 points, 3 receptions, 59 yards. He was targeted 6 times, so he, half of his receptions, which with Stephon Diggs being out and Tank Dell basically not having a knee anymore, as unfortunate as it is, you would expect Nico to come in and do something. I know the Texans just picked up Deontay Johnson from the Ravens and the former Carolina wide receiver and Pittsburgh receiver, but I don't think he had enough practice or anything to actually be on the field in that game, to be honest. But tough to see. I mean, hopefully, Texans are locked into a playoff spot right now. They're the lowest they can drop they're locked into their seeding at 4. So really not much more to play for at that point. Kind of rest up starters, rest up players, and it just sucks going in for fantasy championship week.
Yeah, it does. But at least now we have an extra week.
True.
This is the first season that they've done 18 weeks, right?
They did it last year, I thought.
I thought they only did 7. I thought they did 17 for like the last 3 or 4 years.
I'm pretty sure they did 18 last year.
Okay.
I think.
Irregardlessly, it's changed.
Either way.
Yeah. Yes, if you listen and you caught that, I did just say irregardlessly. Don't hate me. It's just a word I use. It's fine. It's okay.
Or do. Either way. That's fine. We're not sensitive here. We'll be all right.
100%. Not at all.
At least I'm not. Zach, a little bit. But...
I'm only stupid. That's it.
Yeah, that's a podcast for another day.
Yeah. Okay, our last lowest score, kind of going back to the Jets area, right? You're still with the Jets, right?
Yep.
Brees Hall, 6.3 points, 10 carries for 45 yards, one reception for 8 yards. Kind of a worthless game. You take out the reception, he's got 53 yards total, 45 on the ground, eight in the air. And I don't want to say worthless to kind of dog on Brees Hall at all. It was just, up until the point where Tyrod Taylor came in, they didn't score anything under Aaron Rodgers. So, and the Bills are a good defense, but they're not shut down defense like that. Like that was surreal.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that was a lot to blame on the Jets side of the ball. So I mean, they had a couple of picks. They just shut down the run game. They shut down the passing game. I mean, they just did everything.
Yep.
So
yeah, it was just a piss poor outing by the Jets in general.
Yeah, but at this point, I think they're kind of got their sights on a lower picture, which is that number 1 draft pick.
Yep.
Okay, that will wrap up our scores for the week, highest and lowest scores. We're here at just about the 30-minute mark into the podcast, and it's time for everybody's favorite segment. Say it with me, Zach. Shitty bets of the week.
Bets of the week.
Yeah, it is ZSBOTW, and I've got 5 more picks for you this week. If you picked my 5 last week, you lost your money. But this week will probably be the exact same. So let's get into it. 5 picks of the week that I have. This is all based off of DraftKings Sportsbooks. View your local requirements for using online sports betting. And you're welcome, DraftKings, for the you're welcome, DraftKings, for the donations, courtesy of the Pigskin Prognosis podcast. Say that 10 times.
We should try to get DraftKings to sponsor us.
That would be hilarious, actually. That would be hilarious. Okay, 5 picks of the week. Buffalo versus New England. I have Buffalo as the 2.5 point underdog, or 2.5 point favorites against New England. I'm expecting them to sit a couple of starters in the later half of the game. I don't think that Buffalo can actually lose a playoff spot, but they're not the number 1 seed. Sean's favorite team clinched that last week. But I think that they cannot lose the number 2 seed, if I'm not mistaken.
No, they're locked into the 2 seed.
I think they are. So I'm expecting them to see some starters get some playing time, but not much, if in some cases any at all. But 2.5 points against New England, against a team that's probably willing to lose, is, yeah, it's an easy bet. The bets for that one are minus 118. Another team that it's kind of like either or. The Giants, they scored 45 last week. I don't think they expected to destroy. Who did they play?
Jacksonville, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. No. Yeah, it was. No, was it? Was it Jacksonville or was it Tennessee? I don't know. Either way. I just don't think that was something that you're expecting in the from them. And no, it wasn't Jackson. It wasn't either one.
I'm looking right now. Hold on. Keep talking about your bet.
It was
the Colts.
It was the Colts. Thank you. They're playing Philly this week, so that's another team that cannot lose a playoff spot. So they're kind of debating on whether or not they're going to let Saquon go for the rushing yards record. I think that this is going to be a good opportunity for some bets to get thrown in there. The Giants are +3 underdogs. I would expect the Giants to try to come out and score a good amount of points, or at least attempt to. Drew Lock has kind of something to prove back again with the league now that he's back under center. Malik Neighbors is a rookie who hasn't done much all year, and I think he's just trying to, one last game to solidify his
Rookie season.
yeah, his place amongst the receiving core in the New York fan base. So, and against a Philly team that doesn't have much to lose except starters in the postseason, I would expect that the Giants can probably stay within that or beat Philly overall. Texas. I have Texas the third pick. I have Texas as +1 versus Tennessee. Again, Texas locked in, but Tennessee is just, they've lost 5 straight and they're trying, I think. So I have Texas as a +1 underdog, which essentially means that they win the game or lose by 1 point, which is, I haven't seen that many games that close this year. So
yeah,
I would expect that to hit, especially since Tennessee is they're trying. They're trying their absolute best. Okay, our fourth pick is Atlanta versus Carolina. I have Atlanta as 8-point favorites versus Carolina. I truly think that they can get it done. Carolina got demolished inside the league this last week by Baker Mayfield. So to see a Michael Penix come out and look a little bit better this week, I think that kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Improved some thoughts on how his first week's performance or week 16 performance was. So now his week 17 performance was decent, I'll say, right?
Yeah, wasn't terrible.
Yeah, it wasn't bad, but against Carolina, I think that's a safe bet to say that Atlanta would be winners by 8 points. So Atlanta -8 versus Carolina. That bet is has odds of -112. Oh, excuse me.
Oh, yawning. We're halfway through.
Yeah, I'm yawning because I'm yawning myself to sleep. Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is how I feel about my bets too, guys. Don't worry. Because nothing's been hitting for me. But yeah, I already made this bet too, so I'm all in at this point. Last bet is Washington -3.5 versus Dallas because fuck Dallas. I mean, I'm probably gonna lose a lot of fans that way, but I don't like Dallas. But hey, Jerry Jones said you either love him or you hate him, but you're always gonna talk about him. So I'm on the other side of Jerry's world or whatever the hell it's called. So that bet is a -108, the best odds of any bet that I've picked so far this week. But if you parlay all 5 of those, you get a odds total of +2186, which means if you bet $10, you win your original $10 back and an additional $218.62 for a grand total of $228.62 off of an original $10 bet. So that's what I've got this week for Zach Shitty Bets of the Week. We're going to work on getting that DraftKings sponsorship since I'm basically keeping their operation alive.
Yep, you specifically.
With my unfortunate betting.
With your shitty bets of the week.
That's why we call them Shitty Bets of the Week. So, yeah, we'll see how we do. Again, this is the last week of regular season. This is where it can get a little wild in the betting side of things because you're going to miss out on starters playing and whatever, but yeah, so
it kind of makes it a little harder to predict and pick. And
if you don't listen to my bets, just listen to my advice and pay attention to who is and who is out, who is in and who is out, because that could change the odds and that could change your decision to play those odds.
Yep, absolutely. All right, now that we got the ZSBOTDW out of the way, that rattled off pretty quickly.
Yeah, you did. It sounded like you came up with that. It sounded like you came up with that. Yeah.
Yeah, like prepped for that. Now we're here for the the random shit, highlights, recaps and stuff. I feel like the recap part there's a ton of exciting games and a ton of not exciting games this week. But I feel like more of the kind of what we were talking about earlier, draft implications and just general football talk at the end. I feel like, has been a good segment to end on each week. The last couple weeks that we've done it. With that, we'll lead it off with the Giants winning. The team can't even tank correctly. like you had your number one pick locked up. Basically, all you need to do is lose 2 games, which should have been fucking doable. But the Colts naturally had to go and fuck the pooch on that one and let the Giants win.
Okay, so hold on a minute though. If we look at the 4 teams that are tied right now at the bottom of the schedule, or at the bottom of the draft order, or let me
top of the draft order.
Thank you.
Bottom of the schedule or the rankings.
Bottom of the rankings. Yes, the overall leader based off of strength of schedule would be the Giants. They won. I guess they kind of went into that game expecting to have that 1 game buffer because none of the other 3 teams won their games. The Patriots lost to the Chargers by a blowout. The Titans lost and the Browns lost. So if you're the Giants, let's back this up and think about this actually. If you're 2-13 going into the week and all the other teams are 3-12, you have at least 1 win to give. So it looks like you're trying. And if you're the Giants, front office and you say, hey, we can win this game and all the other teams can lose and we can still have the number 1 pick. So it looks like we're actually trying. That's a good mentality to have. But now you're throwing it up to a week 18 and you have 4 teams tied for that number 1 spot. And if, let's say, the Giants win this week, which I'm kind of expecting them to against Philadelphia, who has nothing to lose, and except Saquon Barkley potentially breaking the rushing yards record, which he's all for about not even playing. He doesn't matter. I'm sure that there's like a little bit of an inner, competitive edge of him that's saying, let me play. But he's also one of those guys that looks to put his team on his back. So he's willing to set a personal record aside so he doesn't hurt himself and potentially ruin a playoff run for his entire team. Because that is a huge part of the offense. If you take him out of the equation and you take Philly attempting, not saying that Philly's just going to roll over and die, but they're going to let some of their inexperienced players play. And then you got the Giants who are looking to develop players like Drew Lock and an inexperienced offensive line and your wide receiving core of Malik Neighbors. Those games are where the underdogs thrive because the favorites are the ones that are, really shouldn't be favorites at all because you're not expecting them to do much.
Yeah.
So if the Giants happen to win, they could have gone from a number 1 pick to potentially a number 8 pick.
They're sitting at 4 right now.
They're sitting what?
They're sitting at 4 right now.
Well, so they would be number 1 based off of strength of schedule because they have the 7th hardest strength of schedule.
The way everything's sitting right now, it's Pats, Titans, Browns, and Giants with the way the draft currently sits, and Jags at 5.
Well, I guess that makes sense if you throw in the head-to-heads. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, because that's where they're sitting. So that team went from. I still get what you're saying. I still agree with everything you said a minute ago. It all makes sense. Yeah, you have that buffer, but they needed certain wins to manage out, and certain teams needed to lose. And it wasn't even just the Titans and Browns and shit that needed to win and shit like that. It was other teams needed to beat certain other teams so that the strengths of schedule would line up and the head-to-heads would match up and all that kind of shit in order for that to actually go through and them still to win and maintain that number 1 spot. But I just love that they go through, hey, we got to win. We went from 1st to now 4th. And any of those 3 teams could win this week. Not the Browns, but so the other 2 teams could potentially win this week. And kind of screw it up. What I'll be interested in seeing though is let's say the Giants do get the 4th pick, right? They fucked up. Nobody else wins, then they lose, right? Are they going to try to trade up to get that number 1 spot? Trade up 4 spots? They need a QB.
They do, but does a QB go number 1 overall? That's the other thing. Like, if you look at the draft itself, there's not a lot of QBs projected to go in the top of a couple picks.
Which is why Shakur, however the hell you pronounce his name, declared for this draft and didn't wait.
So you have Shadur Sanders, but you also have Cam Ward, who is actually projected higher than Shadur Sanders. And if you take the draft as it is right now, which you have, this is according to CBS, this is a mock draft. You have Travis Hunter going to the Patriots, to Teroa McMillan, a wide receiver, going to Tennessee. Cam Ward, the quarterback out of Miami, Florida, going to the Browns, and Shadur Sanders going to the Giants. But let's say you are the Giants, and okay, you're sitting at 4 right now. If you win and you go to 4-13, and the Panthers, the Bears, the Jags, the Raiders, and the Jets all lose, now where do you sit? Because now you've got 6 teams tied for the 4th spot, considering that the Browns, Titans, and Patriots also don't win. You know, if you take the Browns, you're right. Because I don't foresee the Browns winning this week, because the Ravens still have to win. They need that win.
Yep.
Especially with you when you have the Steelers looking to clinch the division, and the Bengals. Thankfully, neither one of those teams are playing the Ravens, but those 2 teams are playing each other, and both of those teams are looking. They control their own destiny too to win in the Bengals and the Steelers game, but the Ravens need that win so that way they can secure the division against the Steelers. So they're going to show up against Cleveland. So you're taking Cleveland out of this mix, and they're going to end the season at 3-14. Now you've got the Titans, who are on a 5 losing streak, and they're playing the Tennessee Texans, a team that doesn't have anything to lose. And
what the hell are the Tennessee Texans?
What did I say?
You said the Titans are playing the Tennessee Texans. Who the fuck is the Tennessee Texans?
Well, yeah, the Tennessee Texans are playing the Houston Titans. Come on, man, get with the fucking
yeah. Get with the fucking program, rookie. Jesus.
Yeah, I didn't have my energy drink today.
Yeah.
So you have the Titans playing the Texans, a team and the team of the Texans, the Tennessee Texans. Now the Houston Texans, they have nothing to lose this week either. So they could be one of those teams that's resting up their starters for a playoff run. So let's say that the Titans win. You know, that puts them in a 6-way tie now with the Giants and a 7-way for that. Now, what would be the third slot? And then you've got the Patriots playing the Bills, which, okay, it's the Patriots. So I don't want to go too far and say, like, yeah, they're going to beat the Bills. But again, the Bills, not much left there. They don't have anything to lose. They have nothing to win. Another one of those teams that, if rested, can go a long way in their playoffs and likely will go deep into the playoffs this year. So now you're looking at Cleveland getting the number 1 pick and a 7 or 8-way tie for the second pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now what? Because if the Giants drop down to, let's say, 6 or 7, now you're looking at drafting somebody like a cornerback or an offensive tackle. And yeah, they need an offensive lineman, sure, but they need some offensive weapons. Drew Lock is a good quarterback, but he's a bench quarterback at best. He had a good week, but these numbers are from Drew Lock that I'm looking at right here: 309 yards, 4 touchdowns. Those are not normal Drew Lock numbers.
No, God, no.
So that's somebody that you need to replace in the next season. At the very least, have somebody behind him that's ready to go in a rookie. But can't do that if you are drafting 9th overall, unless you look down and down and down the prospect ranks, and you're looking somewhere at like 20th or 30th for a quarterback, which I'm still scrolling. And Jesus, I can't even find anybody that low. But you know,
Yeah, no, I think it'll definitely be interesting. I think the Giants kind of fucked the pooch and fucked themselves on that. And I think they're realizing that now. Yeah, obviously you want to win, try to at least build some momentum, even if it's garbage time wins and shit like that at the end of the season. But if it's gonna sit there and hurt your draft stock, and it's something that you have positions to fill that need to get filled, and shit, if you watched I think it was 2 weeks ago, the Giants looked like they were tanking for the number one pick. Like it couldn't have been more fucking obvious, at least in my opinion. One of my buddies is a Giants fan, and he fucking thought the same thing. And here we are now with the way they're sitting right now, and this very well could be the way the draft order is going to be, pending obviously next week or this week's games, but. Patriots get number one pick. They already drafted Drake May last season, so they're not going to be in the market for a quarterback. You would think. I could be fucking wrong. So there goes Travis Hunter. You would, again, assume, especially because they need wide receiver help. They also need cornerback help. You get Travis Hunter. That essentially fills both of those, but then you just have to run the risk of, okay, are we going to play him strictly at receiver or strictly at cornerback and run a couple option, packages with him at receiver? Because he's not going to be able to play both sides of the ball 100%. No fucking way.
no,
Not
I agree.
Not at this high of a level.
No.
It's a bitch to do in college, and I give him all the credit in the world. And I like Travis Hunter. And it's impressive what he was able to do, but yeah, not at the NFL level. I would love to see him prove me wrong. I really would, and if you do, you're not going to have very, very long of a season playing, fucking almost 3,000 snaps between the two sides of the ball a season. That's not going to be very long of a career, and then, you got the Titans who, I mean, they've got, who the hell's their QB? The fucking dude that puts mayo in his coffee.
What?
That shit? It was, what the fuck is that dude's name? Fucking I'm drawing.
This is a college guy you're talking about?
No, he was. He is on the team now. Will Levis.
Will Levis puts mayo in his coffee?
That's why he's the fucking Heinz mayo sponsor, dude.
No way! I thought that was just a marketing thing.
On God, that's the reason why he is. Because he came out last season, I think, before he got drafted, and was like, "Oh yeah, I put mayo in my coffee," and everyone's like, "What? What the fuck are you talking about?" Yeah, that's 100% why he's the spokesperson. Heinz jumped all over that shit the second they heard about it.
Okay, now we have a title for this week's episode, but carry on.
It's catchy. It gets the people going. I like it.
It sure does, man.
And then, Browns get 3, right? Okay. Chances are they're, especially, we talked about earlier, restructuring Winston's contract, or not Winston, fucking Watson's contract. Looks like they're going to at least keep him around for at least another year, if not 2. Winston's scheduled to be a free agent. Do you keep him around as a backup, or do you draft a rookie, either Cam Ward or Sanders, to be that backup and I hate to say be the protege of Deshaun Watson, but that would be what would end up happening if that was the case.
I wouldn't be surprised too if Cleveland does something like they did a couple years ago, where everyone was expecting him to pick Sam Darnold in the first overall, and they ended up, or not first overall. It was like the third or fourth pick, yeah. And they took Baker Mayfield instead. And everyone was like, "This is bullshit," blah blah blah. And then Sam Darnold went to the Jets and did bad with the Jets, and then it was like, okay,
man, thought they were seeing ghosts.
But now you look at him with Minnesota, and you're like, okay, maybe we were too harsh to judge.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't be surprised if they come down, and let's say that they do draft a quarterback, right? Which is not uncommon anymore, to sign a quarterback to a big deal and then immediately turn around and then draft a rookie right behind that, because it kind of worked out in the favor of Atlanta this year, who's just hanging on for dear life for their playoff hopes, with Michael Penix taking over for the massive contract of Kurtco. But But, if you look down the list of prospects for QBs coming into the draft, you could look at the likes of somebody like Quinn Ewers from Texas or Drew Aller from Penn State, Carson Beck from Georgia, somebody along that experienced quarterback who has a ton of I don't want to say the word experience twice, but in the postseason aspect of the game, that clutch moment where it's not just a regular season game, now something's on the line, whether it's a bowl game or a playoff run. You get that in Quinn Ewers. Last year he was with Texas. He came into the Final Four where he lost to Washington against Michael Penix. You have Drew Aller, which, up until this year, everybody kind of thought Penn State was just kind of off the side, but they're making an incredible comeback in their prestigious, team that they have over there, and they're in a playoff run. Carson Beck for Georgia. He's a good protege for that Georgia team who's doing really well. Jalen Miller. Don't really like talking about him, but he's on the list. So, I mean, I would not be surprised if a team like the Browns go off the script and draft somebody that's not on the high of the prospect list, but fits more of their mentality and maybe a scouting report that they had from that player, how they act off the field can weigh their prospect level up a little bit higher in certain people's eyes.
It's funny you mentioned that whole like off the field thing, because I do want to mention this whole Cam Ward thing. Like we've mentioned a few times in this episode. Did you see the Pop-Tarts Bowl over the weekend?
I did.
And how Cam Ward pulled himself out of the game and didn't want to fucking play anymore as soon as he beat, I think it was like the most rushing or passing TDs or something by a college quarterback. As soon as he broke that record, he pulled himself out and didn't want to play anymore. The team's down by 1 with 50 seconds left in the game. He still suited up and was like, yeah, I'm not going in.
Yeah.
So I wonder how much of that gets looked at by GMs, head coaches, and shit like that, especially in those top, 5 or 6 spots that are those that are in need of a quarterback, being like, you walked out on your team with one, and what would have helped you, your draft stock and shit potentially, and you quit on your team after you hit a record. Okay, let's say, all right, cool, now you're on a rookie record for passing yards by a rookie QB or rushing yards by a rookie QB, whatever the hell it may be. You hit the record, and then all of a sudden, are you just gonna fucking quit on us mid-game?
Yeah, that's a valid point, and I don't like that.
And unfortunately, I think that's the way that college is going, especially with all the NIL deals and shit. Is like nobody, like all these dudes, but at least a lot of them, a lot of the big name players and stuff, are making fuck tons of money to play college football or just college sports in general now with the NIL deal.
Yeah, that's a valid point too. And some bench players are making more than their starters. Arch Manning, I actually had this conversation about this today with a couple coworkers. Arch Manning is making more money than Quinn Ewers because he is a Manning, a legit Manning. So, yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to do with your game anymore. It's all about publicity.
Yep.
And in the age of publicity and social media and everything, being online, the mentality that you just talked about with Cam Ward, it's difficult to see that on the sideline as a future coach because it could be taken out of context, and it sucks because there might be another reason that you and I don't know about, but if we don't know about it, then it's likely that the Cleveland coaches or the New York Giants coaches that are watching that game as a potential draft pick don't know about it. They just see a guy who's off, who just surprisingly pulled himself out of the game after he beat a record. And that's not something that, whether it happened or not, the perception is there that it's a negative mindset on that player to take himself out of a game just to beat after he beat a record. Which,
and that's the thing, perception is everything.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I hate that saying. I do hate that saying. Truth. But you're right. There is some truth behind it. And it's more so about because you aren't making your intentions known. It's
I still feel like that statement was more of a I'm letting my actions known type deal. Maybe that's just my thought process. I don't know. Because like you said, we don't know what he had going on, but the way it looked, as soon as he beat that record to pull himself out of that game and say he wasn't going to play, especially when his team's down by a point with 50 seconds left and they have the ball, and you were still suited up and still don't get into the game to at least go down and like give your team like a game-winning chance. And granted, it's the Pop-Tart Bowl. Who gives a shit at the end of the day? But like, still, like those are dudes you've been playing with for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, however long. They're looking up to you as what they thought was a leader, thought was a friend. You go in, they're out there still playing and shit, trying to prove a point, and you give up on them the second you get the fucking opportunity to. Oh, I set a record. All right, cool. Peace out. Get fucked.
Yeah, and I think we also kind of talked about this a couple weeks ago, back when the draft talks kind of came up naturally in a podcast. I think it was like week, I don't know, 14 or 15. We talked about Shedeur Sanders and his dad. Coach Prime now, but Deion Sanders talking about how he had to defend his kid with no, my son didn't say he won't play for Vegas or Cleveland. This is back when Vegas was also in the talks for first round picks, so they're not far off. They're only a loss away. But how much of that mentality of I am a top 5, I don't really want to say top 10 because it's really only like the top 3 draft picks each year that get so much publicity that it's apparent to them that they're obviously being told, hey, you could be number 1 overall. And they're only midway through their college, potentially last year of their college season. How much of that do you think plays into that decision towards a bowl game where your season is over, except for this bowl game? As soon as the bowl game's done, your season's over, right? This is the last game of the year. How much of that old mindset that you've been told for 6, 7 weeks at this point, hey, you could go number 1 overall, could play into the factor of Cam Ward pulling himself out of a game, or Shedeur Sanders pulling himself out of a game? If that's something
the Sanders and Hunters didn't, that's the difference. They played that. I mean, they got fucking worked by BYU.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if you look at Sanders, how he played that game, that might have potentially hurt his draft stock, and Hunters too. But still, they got worked in that game, and they still fucking played.
Which I think too, that you really have to look at the environment that you're in. Yes, Sanders did get work, and BYU did punish them. If y'all are wondering what the score was, go check it out. It was a beating.
Embarrassing.
Yeah, but I have to go back to that work ethic about that. They got out there and they knew that this is their last game of the season potentially. But no, it was. They weren't in a playoff run.
Yeah, they're done.
This is their last game of the season, right? They went out there knowing that very well. And halfway through the game, when they know it was like, this is either going to be a clutch comeback and it's going to raise my draft stock, which Travis Hunter was pretty much already the number 1 draft stock already. But Shedeur Sanders really had nothing to gain. And if they were to do a clutch comeback, why not pull yourself out of that situation? And I go back to that work ethic mentality of you were so focused on just putting in the work. Like, you've accomplished a lot in college, but you are nowhere near good enough to be at the, I don't want to say good enough because that's implying like an entry level, but you are nowhere near your plateau, if you will, for a professional level. And I like the fact that they went out there and they played, because they could have learned something that could affect them positively in their pro career starting next year. If they get
I mean, I'm a big combat sports fan, boxing, MMA, mixed martial art, UFC, all that kind of shit. And I look at that bowl games for college as kind of like sparring. Like, I like how you said, hey, you're not quite at that level yet. You could have learned something positively, or hell, even negatively, pending. Especially if you get hurt. Like, hindsight always being 20/20. And you sit there and spar before a big fight comes up. Most fighters, I would say 99.9% of them do. There are a handful that don't, but we're not talking about them right now. They go in, hey, I'm gonna put in X amount of rounds in in sparring against dudes that are, very similar to these guys, the guy that I'm fighting, blah, 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 to help me, get put into situations and help me learn, hopefully, for, when it's time to get in and have that big name fight, have my championship fight, so I look at a bowl game as that. Like, hey, all right, cool, you're very close to going up in to the next level and then the next league, right? In the next division, if you want to look at it that way. And yeah, so granted, some of these dudes, aren't, and for BYU aren't college level players. Some are. They'll get drafted, obviously. But when you look at it for a combat sports side of the house too, it's kind of the same thing. Like the dudes you're sparring against isn't fucking, Mike Tyson in his prime when you're sparring him. It's just someone to go out there and learn a little bit, pick up, sudden nuances. Travis Hunter could learn how to, create separation against a DB or a cornerback or a safety a little bit better, or he could go through and hey, can I get a jump off the line, or can I block a little bit better for so and so, or can I cover somebody better as a cornerback? And
yeah,
I don't know. It just seems weird that you want to kind of give up on that opportunity for growth and that opportunity to learn, especially at like the collegiate level when it's not as competitive. I mean, it's competitive, obviously, but
it is. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it's not NFL level. You know what I mean? Where there's 3 other dudes behind you that are, willing to take your job because that means they get paid more now.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. The NIL deals and stuff. Maybe that'll be what we talk about a lot next week, just because of the fact that we have no fantasy shit to really cover next week. Just do some bets, and then we can pretty much talk about NIL deals and shit like that, and just random shit we want to talk about. But I don't know. Maybe that's just my thought process on it, and that'll be what I end my section of talking about in this podcast for this week. I know we went a little over the hour mark, but that's fine. But and then if you want to put your final remarks, so to speak, on it, and
I really have
get into it next week.
I really don't have anything extra to say. I've said a lot. I talked a lot about it. I feel like I cut out a lot of your talking time. You can always just step over me too and just be like, "Shut the fuck up."
I don't look at this as a my talk your talk, my talk your talk, my talk your talk. I don't look at this podcast as that. I never have. There's been episodes where you talk more or I talk more. It all depends on what it's about. Especially if we're covering Carolina, the week that the Browns had a bye week or vice versa. So shit like that. It's always interesting to see like other people's perspectives on it. I know everybody pretty much has their group of people that they talk with, whether it's sports or just obviously life in general. And I'm fortunate enough that me and you actually ended up meeting through a fucking online video game, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
To sit there and actually have these conversations and get those insights. People that are from different parts of the country and shit like that, and see like, okay, cool, this is your thought process on the whole Cam Ward thing. This is my outlook. This is different sports and shit that everybody likes, and it's nice to have that, nice to go through, and if anybody in the comment section wants to leave a comment and give us any insight as to what everybody thinks as far as the whole NIL deals, draft stock, draft order, what they want to see, maybe hell, what you want to see your team draft at this year, and then
let us know. We got 1 week left. Let us know what you think the final draft order is going to be. Who do you think's going to go number 1 overall? Tell us what you think in the comments.
Yeah, maybe that'll be one of Zach's bets.
Maybe that. Hey, they do. I think they do. I think they do have bets. Like that. I'm pretty sure they do that. So maybe that'll be one of my wild bets of the quarter or whatever.
The off season.
Yeah, whatever. Shitty bets of the off season. Oh my god, yeah. All right. Well, I think we're gonna wrap it up here for the week. Sully, as always, it's been an amazing week talking to you about fantasy stuff, and thank you all to the listeners and checking in with us and your continued support. Feel free to watch the Pigskin Prognosis podcast live every Tuesday morning throughout the off season until we run out of shit to talk about. But we'll come up with something every week through the postseason. At the very minimum, we'll do this all the way up to the postseason. We'll talk about postseason stuff and keep you all in the loop. And and just kind of
Super
engage in
Bowl
some
stuff
conversation.
and
And then we're also on Spotify too. So if you're driving into work on a Tuesday morning, we try to drop these live at 6 a.m. every Tuesday morning. But yeah, that's all I got. Anything back from you, Sully?
no, pretty much like Zach said, you know, it's been a pleasure, man. Definitely enjoyed doing this. It's been this is what, like week 12 or 13, I think, of us doing this. I know we picked it up like quarter of the way into the season, but it's been fun. I know obviously we got next week's episode before we, wrap up our regular season, basically, before we get into the playoffs. But it's been fun. Looking forward to next season with you. And again, I know we still got one more week, but we'll for the listeners and those that are viewing, we'll have expect improvements from the podcast going into next season. So
Yeah,
we'll leave it at that. We got some months to figure it out before football picks back up. But yeah, we'll definitely take it through the Super Bowl. We'll have some off-season stuff. We'll definitely do some draft coverage. Hell, we might do live draft coverage. Who knows?
that would actually be cool. Yeah, let us know in the comments if you want us to do some live draft coverage. We can do some picks and some fun games or whatever with some viewers. We'll figure it all out.
Yeah.
Let it also know something Sully and I kind of tossed around. I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast or not, but we definitely talked about it offline. Is a channel league. If y'all are interested in doing a Pigskin Prognosis fantasy league, let us know. Give us a like and shoot us a comment and say you're interested in joining a league. I think we'll do a free league at the very minimum, a very cheap league, so that way we can get maximum participation.
Yeah.
And winner can get some bragging rights at the very least. So let us know down below if you're interested in that, and we will look into doing that next season.
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, Happy New Year's, everybody. Hopefully, your 2025 brings, or your 2024 brought at least a fantasy championship with some money if you won, and if not, hopefully, 2025 will bring you a better fantasy season, because I know I need one. But
yeah. Happy New Year, everybody. Be safe and responsible tonight while celebrating, and if you drink responsibly. And as I am very keen to this, please do not drink and drive. So call somebody if you are at that level.
call an Uber, call a Lyft, call a fucking friend.
Call me. Goddamn, I'll drive you.
Yeah. Trust me, they'd much rather have you calling them at 2 a.m. instead of something ladder. Yeah, police, or worst case scenario, you kind of an accident and shit. But
yeah. All right. On the sad note that we just started there, we will we'll leave the podcast at that. Thank you all very much. Enjoy your new year, and we will see you next Tuesday for postseason coverage of the 2024 NFL season. Have a great night, everybody. Great day.
Bye.